Okay, we'll call the meeting to order at this time. Welcome board members and the community to tonight's Township Board meeting. And we're going to open in prayer. And Gary, would you offer up our prayer tonight?
Shall we pray? Our gracious and heavenly Father, we come before you, Lord, this evening, and we thank thee for the blessings again of the day. And we're thankful for the sunshine, and we're starting to see the growth already of some of our plants coming through the ground. We ask for blessings now in our meeting tonight. May we make decisions that are honorable and pleasing unto you. We ask for blessings upon our employees here at the township, those that work behind the desk and those that work out in the field. Continue to be with our fire department and our Ottawa County Sheriff's Department as they guide and protect us and give us the safety that we seek. Bless each one of them, give them safety wherever they do, whatever they may be. Be with our military, O Lord, and also be with our nation. We ask for blessings for even our own local government, our county commissioners, our state and local government, our governor, our president, our Congress, our Supreme Court justices, and all those, O Lord, that are in charge of our judicial system. Pray, O Lord, that we don't always agree with one another, but we also, Lord, come as Americans. May we come as ones that love our nation. May we strive, O Lord, to do what betters our nation, even down to our own local community. Bless us now, Lord, and the rest of this week as we look forward in celebrating the Easter holiday. In Jesus' name we pray.
Amen.
Amen. Amen. Thank you, Gary. You could all rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Clerk Kuiper, if you call the roll.
Trustee Schwalm.
Here.
Treasurer DeWitt.
Here.
Clerk Kuiper's here. Supervisor Wieringa.
Here.
Trustee Grassman. Yes. Trustee Veldink.
Yes.
Trustee Kelly.
Yes.
We're all present.
Right. Full board tonight. Welcome everyone back. I know we've had travels, various of us, since the last time we were together. Trust everybody enjoyed their time wherever they may have spent it. Tonight we have an agenda that's been published and reviewed in advance here. Is there someone who wishes to make a motion to approve tonight's agenda?
So move.
Support.
Moved and supported. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? And our agenda is approved for this evening. Item 6 on our agenda, we're going to start off right away here with John Teeples. John was recently elected the Ottawa County Commissioner here, covering half of our district. And then I think, John, you've also been chosen as the chairman of the commission there. And so we congratulate you in that respect. And I know that's a lot of work, and you're here to report back to us on what's happening.
Yeah, first of all, Gene, thank you for praying for us. We need it.
We all need it.
It means a lot. Thank you. It's so nice, really, truly nice to be here. It really is. And I appreciate you taking some time to. For a while, I didn't have a whole lot to say, but not that I have a whole lot more, but we've done some things I thought you should know about. So first, I'd like to congratulate Rob. We're going to miss you, buddy. The community owes you a great debt of gratitude, and your leadership, your nature, personality. We just can't thank you enough. So thanks. I know Rob's going to continue. He's going to be on the Citizens Committee that helps us find the new administrator. So he's not going too far, at least not yet. But anyway, I just want to say thank you. So when I became a commissioner, my primary objective was to try to build, restore trust in our county government, and to try to figure out how to reunite the community, get rid of some of the divisiveness. It's still the objective. It's the primary objective. And so everything that's happened since January is with that in mind. And it's strategic. But it's been a real challenge. There's no question about it. But I think we've made good progress. The sense throughout the community has been positive. But I always knew that it would be my sense it was a 6-month endeavor to kind of put things back so that we could make some decisions that I thought were more practical and filled with common sense, so that we can move the county and get the county business going. So much of the last 4 months has been just organizational stuff. And the first, of course, was the hiring of the interim county administrator, Gary Rosema, and then he brought on his deputy, Ron Franz. Both of them had been, Gary had been the sheriff for over 40 years in the county, and Ron Franz, the prosecutor, for 45 years. These two men have done more for Ottawa County than we can ever think in 4 months. They've stabilized the employee base. We're not having people leave anymore. They know the personnel throughout the county. They know the policies. They know the people. They know the internal makings of the county. And they're just so smart. But their days are numbered. They always said it'd be a 6-month deal for them, and we're on track to make that happen, and I'll explain that in a minute. The other thing we did was we have changed corporate attorneys. It's an interim basis. We posted for new attorneys. We're still in that process of finding impartial and experienced county attorneys. There's a difference between attorneys that understand township law versus county law. And those kind of attorneys are just not as prevalent as you would expect, you might think. So we're in that process, but in the meantime, we've got some really good interim, like Dickinson Wright Law Firm, to kind of make sure that we're on course. So that was a big step. The second meeting we had was a long one, if you know about it. It was when we focused on the board rules. I started with those rules because, as you know, the rules set the foundation of all the work we were to do. They had to be right, and we spent 9 hours doing that. Never expected it to take 9 hours, but we went through every rule, and it turned out that it was a good team building exercise as well, as it turned out. Got us talking about issues we might not have otherwise talked about, but those became the foundation for the work that had to happen and has happened since. We're still tweaking on a couple things, but we're real close to having those done. Next thing we did is it deals with committee assignments. The county previously had, for instance, the board had 9 standing committees that met at various times in the month, 9. We narrowed that to 2, and instead of just having certain people of certain constituency groups on these committees, we put all 11 of us on the 2 standing committees. And we're meeting now twice a month instead of multiple times during the month to try to streamline and make government more efficient. That's actually worked out pretty well. So now when we have a planning committee meeting or a finance committee, all 11 of us are there. So we bring something out of the committee to the board, which we'll do next week, for an example. We've all heard the arguments. We've already discussed it, so it kind of streamlines that decision-making process as well. We also took, and this is something I wasn't aware of until just before I took office in January, is the number of committees and boards throughout the county that commissioners sit on. It's incredible. There's like 15 to 20 of these. And it could be groundwater, it could be airport authorities, it could be, they're just multiple, brownfield, right? And what I did is I assigned commissioners to those on an equal basis, so that it's not just, so that everybody has an equal voice as much as possible of all 11 commissioners. That's what we did, and the board approved it, and so that was a big step. And then we found out there's certain boards throughout the county that are, like say veterans, that are statutorily created, and so the law says you have to, the law says that you hold a seat in certain ways, number of years, those kind of things. And it turns out over the years, multiple years, Ottawa County wasn't doing it right. So there was a lot of, and then there was bylaws of these committees or boards that were inconsistent with law. So we've gone through all of those to clean those up and get these on track with members that are consistent now with law on those specific boards that were statutorily in nature. So that work was done, and that's pretty tedious work, very tedious work. We also have, I don't like, it's a pet peeve of mine to change agendas verbally at a board meeting, if you can avoid it. So we publish the agendas. My goal is to publish at least, hopefully Thursday, but at least by Friday noon if possible, for the board meeting the following Tuesday. And everybody knows, don't bring these changes to the board the first time, because the public has a right, from my perspective, to know what that agenda is and not let it get changed at the last minute. So we haven't really changed agendas at board meetings, but that was a change too. I also added to the board meetings, and I think you guys have that, where we have commissioner comments at the end of the meeting. That had been eliminated previously, but everybody should have a voice, at least to say something if they want. And so I brought that back into the equation, again with the idea that, look, we're 11 commissioners representing Ottawa County, 306,000 people. It should be balanced. Everybody should have a voice. And that's been my objective from day one, and we're playing it out. We settled lawsuits, particularly John Gibbs matter. There's a couple of them out there. There's one really big one that's still hanging. I don't know how it's going to play out, but we're clipping them off, right? Making decisions on that. So what's next on the agenda? The first is the administrator search for a permanent administrator. We had hoped today to have posted for that job. It didn't happen. It looks like it'll happen tomorrow. But the materials are ready. And so here's kind of the timing that you'll hear when this gets posted eventually. But here it is. So we'll post tomorrow. It'll post until May 27th. And then on June 4, Rob and his committee of citizen groups. Now, the citizen group committee, again, to bring the public into this, are representatives from across the county that understand the county's need for an administrator. So it's people from that like Rob from Georgetown, or from Grand Haven, or Zealand, or Coopersville. It's not a big committee, but it's people that understand exactly what we need, and they know the players in the marketplace, right? Their job will be to interview and give their analysis of strengths and weaknesses of candidates. They're not going to pick and choose. They're not going to prioritize. They're just going to give us their feedback on what they see and what they know about these candidates. That'll be on June 4. On June 5 then, and there'll be an open house, a public open house that day to meet those candidates as well. On June 5, then the board will get together and interview. And the hope is that on June 11th, we will select our new county administrator on June 11th, with the idea of starting sometime in July, hopefully. So June 11th is the big day, right? And start spreading the word if you know of anybody that might be interested, because that's the most critical piece that I see in the county, is we need a strong professional administrator that can help lead us into the future. That's critical. A couple more things. County parks. I thought you might want to know this. You know, the Rosie Mound Park along Lake Michigan, there's 127 acres that got purchased, and money is being allocated now, or we apply for grants that will make that 127 acres, which is all sand dunes primarily, open to the public with walkways and all kinds of stuff. The design for that 127 acres, pretty impressive, so that more people can access Lake Michigan and the dunes. It's going to be really cool. The Idema Explorer Trail, we've been developing, more money got put into that, and more is coming. It hasn't been announced yet, but more is coming, and it's going to be pretty substantial. Farmland preservation is a big one to me. As the county is growing as fast as it's growing, how do we preserve farmland? there is a farmland program in the county. There's not a lot of money in it, but some money. We just, and how it works is you go to an existing farmer and you buy their development rights while they still live there. So to keep it as farmland, so they can sell the land, but the land someday, whenever they want to, but the land stays for farmland use. And so we just made a purchase of that out of a West Olive, in West Olive, and it was pretty cool. It was an elderly couple, and they were just so thrilled to basically donate their land that they know it's going to stay that way. And hopefully we can continue to find more and more of those properties. Brownfield housing, as you know, housing's huge. It's a big problem all over the state. We've got a development that we're going to be voting on Tuesday night in Hudsonville to try to spur on economic development. Blighted properties, the law changed. So it used to be that, Brownfield dealt with environmental cleanup, blighted properties. Now it's not just that. It's broader than that, but it also allows for housing developments. And so Hudsonville's been leading the charge. Zeeland's got one like that too. One of the big issues facing the county is the groundwater aquifer. I don't know if you guys have talked about this, but believe it or not, the aquifer is depleting. Who would have thought? It's a big deal, especially to the northern counties. And the water needs to be available for farms, and yet it's depleting. So we just approved I can't remember if it was $50 or $60 million bond with Wyoming to build that pipeline coming out of Lake Michigan. You guys have been involved in that, right? You know that. And it's all with this idea of trying to figure out, okay, how do we protect that aquifer as much as we can for those that don't have access to, like we have in Georgetown, public utilities. So that's an issue that's ongoing. So bottom line is that we've been working pretty hard. Hope we're making a difference. I think we are. I've met a lot of wonderful people, business community people all over the county, residents. It's just been really positive. But we got work to do, and we're far from being done. But I think when the administrator gets selected and gets going sometime in July, and we'll do a strategic planning process when he gets here too, probably in August. We've held back on that because we wanted him or her involved in that. We'll do it then. But anyway, that's where we are, and that's what I came to tell you about. Any other questions you have, I'll answer if you have anything.
John, anything new on the Grand River pathways?
Yeah.
It's beautiful down by the water plant, but I think there's some sections that still have to be done yet.
Coming.
Okay.
John, it's coming. It's close. I keep hearing about it. I've seen stuff on it. It's going to be pretty exciting. We've been waiting for that, right? All these years, and the links are happening. So yeah, I would just say hold tight.
Okay. The Sequia Trail is exceptional with the bridges. So.
I went to a Farm Bureau meeting not long ago, and one of the issues that came up was who replaces those light bulbs on some of these bridges, right? And apparently you got to go through MDOT to replace a light bulb. It was pretty ridiculous. But yeah, there's a lot of neat things. The parks, Ottawa County parks are second to none, right? And they just keep getting better. And they will keep getting better. It's a major commitment for the county, and it will continue to be. So, all right.
That's great. I appreciate you coming out.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I do sometimes think that we have two representatives on the county board from Georgetown. And I'll be honest with you, I think we're kind of forgotten on this side of the county. You can list all the committees and subcommittees, but I don't think very few of them affect Georgetown Township. I've looked them up on the website, and the whole Lakeshore corridor, yeah, they got all kinds of stuff over there for Housing Commission and veterans, and you look at around here and well, how does that affect us? And it doesn't seem to it crosses much past 48th Avenue. It kind of just stays all over there. And I think we also are the largest township. We're 1/3 of the population, and it's very frustrating for me, having been on the board on my 5th year, going, you know, I still have a sore spot for the $54 million in ARPA funds, which I don't think we got 10 grand of that. That came from the county as far as infrastructure and everything. It all got spread out on Lake Shore. And it's somewhat frustrating to me, considering that I represent a township that's in this county too. So, I mean, I appreciate you coming, I really do, and I appreciate your work. I do watch some of those board meetings. You do not get paid enough to sit there for 9 hours for a meeting, in no way. So I'm just telling you. But that's one of the things that I would like to see go back to the Ottawa County Board Commissioners. But you know what? We're the forgotten township, and we're the largest township.
That's why Rob's sitting on that committee for us.
Yeah, and
I couldn't agree with you more, Gary. I mean, we've always been the outskirts of Ottawa County, right? We're almost in Kent County.
Well, yeah.
And but you've got me now. I'm not going anywhere.
Yeah.
That's serious about Georgetown.
And I appreciate that. And my other comment too, and I know parks are great, and we have parks in Georgetown too, but the one thing that nobody ever takes in consideration is, like you talk about changing the bulbs, is the upkeep on these parks down the road. It's all great when it's new, but then 15, 20 years from now, you're like, now we get to spend a boatload of money trying to upkeep it. I mean, you know, the Rosie Mountain Park, I'm very familiar with that. I actually bid on doing the first phase years ago. You're not allowed in it with any equipment of any kind. So you either got to do it by foot or by horseback or by helicopter, because it's a non-motorized park. I bid on that job, I know. And so you're like, that's all great, but when you got to redo the paths and redo the buildings, it's very expensive down the line. So that's my 2 cents on some of that stuff. It's like, it's very expensive to upkeep all these things. We know that. We got a Parks Department guy here. He knows what I'm talking about.
So we're looking at the budget really carefully. And getting, for an example, the companies, entities that got ARPA funding, bringing them to the board and tell us, what did you do with it? Let's see if you did something with it, you know, if it's productive. We're in the process of having department heads work out over the next, it's going to take some time, analyze what's mandatory spending versus discretionary, so we can start to track that. These are all steps in process that are going to take some time. The new administrator will be vital to make sure those happen. But I had meetings today on finance, just discussing with the administration finance issues of accountability. Because we have to run efficiently. We got to make sure that, like you said, you know, those parts are taken care of. You know, one thing I didn't mention that I probably should, community mental health. It's got a $3 million deficit, right? And we have a millage that's going to be coming new. But I've learned, and I've talked to state legislators about this, this deficit is not unique. We're a $3 million deficit in the county, but there's a $20 million deficit in Kent County, and this is like all over the state. It turns out state is not giving counties enough money to cover the essential services required by Medicaid. And the county legally can't fund that, can't use general fund monies to cover the shortfall of mental health when it comes to Medicaid services. It's a big issue, but it's a statewide issue. We met with the legislators 2 weeks ago. I was in Lansing at the State of the State, and I pulled aside a couple of the committee chairs that are dealing with this. Graham Van Workum, a state rep to the north of the county, is the chair of one of these committees. They know this is a problem, but they use actuary numbers to give money to the counties to cover their services, right? Well, those actuaries are off big time. And so it's a big state issue, and that's got to get addressed. And it's not going to get paid under my watch, if I can, by county general funds, because this is a state issue. And I made it very clear to the state representatives, this is your problem, you better take care of it. In the meantime, we still have to provide the services. That's what's the crazy thing. So we'll see how they play it out under the new budget analysis that they don't expect in Lansing to get done until fall, which is a few months after the fact that they typically do. So it's an issue, but community mental health, you know, we are one of the few counties in the whole state of Michigan that has a millage to support mental health, you know, which is why we're probably in better shape than a lot of the counties are, but still, right? So it's on the agenda. We're watching it carefully, really carefully. But you should know.
John, on the whole, is this job what you thought it would be, or is it different somehow?
I knew it was going to be tough. I didn't expect the amount of time. To be honest with you, I didn't expect that it would take as much time as it's taken. Look, whenever you're dealing with people that have different views, you got to try to mesh them and try to find where you can make things move ahead. That's a challenge. I knew that'd be a challenge, but it's coming. It's coming, but it's a process, right? And this didn't just get here overnight. It's a process, but people of goodwill can do a lot of good things, and we have a great county. This is what I've learned. I've met some fabulous people, but what I also discovered is the number of people like Gary Roseman and Ron France coming out of retirement after multiple years to help. There are people like that all over this county that are coming to help the county deal with one issue or another. It's incredible. You guys wouldn't believe it. That's really humbling to see that. So, yeah, Jim, I think that it's probably in some ways more than I expected, but other ways exactly what I expected.
And I applaud you for being able to sit for 9 hours.
Yeah,
I
me
couldn't
too.
do it.
I was really surprised.
Yeah.
But it actually worked out, you know. And I was we were just talking a second ago, you know, my priority is to have streamlined meetings, efficient meetings, and they're still not there yet. They're still too long, right? We'll take some action about trying to make a few steps on our meeting on Tuesday to kind of narrow that down, but they're still too long. They're not efficient yet. But there's only two days a month instead of 10, right? So that's good, I guess. And we save all the resources. Every time you have a public meeting, you know, it takes a lot of resources to make that happen. So we've stopped that, but we're still not, in my mind, we're not efficient enough as a board and how we do things. And I haven't lost sight of that at all.
Well, speaking of coming out of retirement, you did so as well. We appreciate it, and we appreciate your service.
Nice to see you. Thanks again.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chad.
Thank you.
Somebody will look back and thank you for streamlining things. You just may not get the credit, but I appreciate that.
All right. We'll move on to item 7 on our agenda, which is our communications, letters, and reports, which board members have received for information. Item number 8, public comment. So public comment on action items tonight on our agenda. The floor is open. Anyone here tonight wish to address the board on agenda items?
No way.
It's not really an action item, and I apologize if I'm not, but he mentioned something that I thought was a great idea, and Gary had mentioned this before, that Grand Valley is moving into Georgetown, and if they buy more property, it's not taxable. And what he was talking about, the farmland, that they bought the farmland, and to keep it farmland, that will still be a taxable situation for us. Maybe we as a board can look at doing a similar thing as the county's doing so that we can keep that land in the tax-paying part of our county instead of having it go to Grand Valley State University.
Yeah, yeah. Anyone else? Welcome. So we've had the Tigers, now the Lions, U of M. We just need the Spartans yet.
I'll wear my Tigers next time.
All right.
Anyways, as far as the increase for the cemetery plot raises, I'm skeptical, I guess, about that. Going from 600 to 1,000 is not a small increase. That's a substantial increase. You know, I've been looking into that a little bit more on my own since, you know, as some of you know, or most of you know, my dad passed away right before Christmas. And so I've been looking around that kind of makes you focus on, those type of things at my age. And, Jamestown's 400. I understand it's not as big as Georgetown, but I also found it interesting with Jamestown is they don't allow people there at all unless you're an actual, citizen of Jamestown. Now, I have an in because my mom has a plot there and she's a direct relative, so they told me I could still go there. Apparently, it doesn't matter even if I live there for a good part of my life. You have to be there currently. But since my mom has a plot there, I'm able to get it there. So that's a pretty big increase. So I would just ask caution before maybe approving that. I do not think that's a small raise. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, sir.
Yeah, my comment has to do
If
with
you could just identify yourself by name and address, yeah.
John DeBlay, Georgetown.
Welcome, John.
Thank
Can
you.
we get addresses?
He did, I think. Did you not give an address? Or
Just-
Oh, okay. We like street address.
82 Marion Street.
Very good, thank you.
So my comment's kind of about what Gary said about us being the forgotten part of the county. And I guess my bigger question is not just for Commissioner Teeples, but for all of you is the removal of the E-unit program and how that's going to financially affect us as a township. It's a huge decision. I know it's going to cost Georgetown a ton of money, and I don't know if you guys want to add that to something we want to research, but it's just a very important issue. Keeps our families safe.
Very true, very true, very true. Thank you. All right, anyone else? Seeing none at this time, we'll close the initial public comment period. Go to item 9 on the agenda tonight. Our consent agenda. Is there a motion to approve tonight's consent agenda?
So moved.
Support.
All right, any discussion among the board? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? And it carries. Item 10, Art in the Park request. It's a motion to approve the request from Granville Jennison Chamber of Commerce to host Art in the Park in Rosewood on Saturday, June 21, 2025. Is there a motion to approve
So moved.
that use?
Support.
Moved and supported. The Chamber has done some great things in Rosewood in the past. I know there's been a bit of a lull the last couple of years. I don't know to what extent. I know we're talking about a potential band shell and ideas like this. It could be, I think, probably, it could be transformed again into getting wide use like that for events such as this. And we appreciate when the Chamber's willing to put their muscle behind it. They just need the permission to use it. And I think it'd probably be a good thing.
Yep, they're
I'm
doing
just
all the
curious if
work.
they're asking for permission or forgiveness because they're already advertising for it.
Oh. Are they really?
Yeah.
All right. Where'd you see it? Where'd you see it?
I seen it on a social media post or something, but I was like, oh, they have Art in the Park and that's on the agenda. I'm like, oh, okay.
That's a little presumptive, isn't
Guess
it?
we got to approve it.
No, not necessarily, but yeah.
Yeah.
Jumping the gun a bit.
Their events have always been quality,
Oh, yeah.
and they provide the staff, and it doesn't require that we have to have paid people there to make it all happen. And Heather has an excellent reputation of pulling that stuff off very, very well.
Well, and when they do events, they understand, obviously, the character of the community. So you might say Art in the Park by some third party you didn't know of, you'd wonder and worry a bit, I think.
Yeah.
What's going to show up, but I think they do a good job. All right, any other comments? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? And the motion is carried. Item 11, proposed change to policy 2022-01, park entrance fees for non-residents. Is there a motion to approve what's been proposed in the way of a policy change, which you've all read, I'm sure?
Support. Support.
And moved and supported. I know this came to services. Kelly, Amy, any of you? I know I'll speak to the history, and you guys can speak to the present. I think it's been about 3 years that we made the change to begin to charge fees at Maplewood and at 8th Avenue. John, I think you were around. We might have been the only ones. I was not favorable to that, but I was also not there to vote on it at that time. It was a meeting, a summer meeting, as I recall, and I was gone. But I don't know. It was not our past practice, and I I kind of question the efficacy of it. But I think we all said, let's just test it. Let's see then what comes of it. And we kind of know now is with 3 years worth of data. Certainly not a moneymaker. It was never intended to be. I think it was meant to cover some costs and maybe to keep the parks more likely to be used by residents. You're a big parks person, Kelly. What are your thoughts about it?
I mean, I was in favor of seeing both of the fees go for Maplewood and 8th Avenue, even at services. But ultimately, I think what you said, making decisions that are data-driven are important. We know that it's a loss for us to have guards there to be checking IDs, and the intention was there to try to preserve parks for taxpayer patronage, but there's a lot of ways around that, and people are very keen to avoid paying the fees, and I'm just not quite sure it's doing what it's intended to do. But I think step number one in removing the fees at Maplewood and simply keeping the fees at 8th Avenue, I think will continue to allow us to make data-driven decisions in the fact that we aren't able to separate where that loss is coming from now. We just kind of have a lump sum of the costs associated with collecting fees and the fees being brought in. So without Maplewood on there, we can focus a little bit more on 8th Avenue. My gut tells me it also will just continue to show that it's, unfortunately, we're losing money again.
Yep.
But I think it's important that we collect that data before we make another decision. So I think it's a step in the right direction, just because it's not really fulfilling the intention behind it. So it's not really serving a purpose.
8th Avenue was being overwhelmed, and many of the people were not behaving well at all. And Monday cleanup was a nightmare for our staffs. So it was lumped together with Maplewood. And it seems like things are going much, much better at Maplewood. And so to pull this, I think is logical. But if we find that in the future that vandalism kicks up or our people can't find space anymore, then maybe we're going to need to go back to it. I don't know. I think being flexible is a key. But 8th Avenue is a real, real challenge for our staff.
Yeah.
And part of it is Rob has got very strong people skills. And so that has helped us down there a great deal.
Yeah, I know the county does something similar. You can go to Hager Park, of course, and just drive in. But if you want to go to Tunnel Park, you're going to pay a fee, right? Because certain parks are just more used than others. And I think 8th Avenue has been. If there's any park that would justify maybe continued look at it, and as I say, I was not at the outset in favor of it, but I do understand the argument that it was being overrun to the point where our own residents weren't getting the full use of it. Kelly's point's well taken too, which is that people will find a way in one way or another. Perhaps we'll look at, and I'll just say on behalf of services, perhaps we'll look at the question of, do we have some sort of annual pass like you can get at a county park or what have you? Do you, at 8th Avenue, say for those who are repeated users who are from outside the community, maybe they can purchase a pass and something along those lines might be useful, but we'll see.
We could just quit claim deed them to the county and they could just take them over. John? This could be a win-win.
Does anyone on the board use these parks frequently? Yeah.
Avenue.
Yeah. Yeah. We use 8th more than we do Maplewood.
Yeah, because they've got the nice 1 mile loop to run or walk.
Yeah, they're fantastic parks,
We use Maplewood more than 8th Avenue.
Okay.
The 8th Avenue is a gem. It's got a little bit of everything. But as you get more towards the business section, it's kind of wild back in there, and you'll have people that will camp live back there. And that's a problem. And they often hide back there. And then they'll use our facilities. And our people, I think, have done a very good job of managing that.
You camp along the river down there, you mean close to
the creek?
Yeah, the creek, yeah.
Yeah, I used to walk that a lot, and you walk across these regularly.
Well, other thoughts? So it's a modification, it's not a complete rescission. And as you said, Kelly, we'll keep watching the data, yeah? Everybody? Is that good?
Yep.
All right, all in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? And it's carried. Item number 12, 8th Avenue Park spillway improvements. Is there a motion to approve the proposal from Prina Newhoff for the replacement of the spillway there at 8th Avenue?
I will make a motion. Support.
Supported. You guys all know what we're talking about if you've gone there.
Yes.
Yep. I know we've gotten reports from our fire and just our employees that it's necessary to continue it. All right, we don't have the option of somehow closing it off. And then B, it's a bit of a steep drop, and so fire engines and other things would bottom out. You have to really park outside of that spillway and somehow bring help from there.
We need our first responders to be able to get to somebody in distress.
Now, correct me if I'm wrong, but this would elongate the grade, right? So that it's
Yeah.
yeah.
Yep, so it's passable by, a ladder truck if need be, right? But just kind of continuing on this, to Gary's point earlier, it's items like these. It's, these not to exceed $115,000 to replace, right, this concrete spillway feature. That's never top of your mind when you think, wow, we've got a brand new park, a beautiful park to enjoy, so exciting. It's these line items that we are blessed to be able to afford the maintenance on it. But it is something that has to be top of mind consistently when thinking about our parks. The only way that I feel that it's appropriate to even consider charging for a park, it's when it's worthy to come to. And I think 8th Avenue needs a little bit of help to kind of re-engage some people.
I agree with
not at the same standard as some of the other parks that we put a lot of time and effort. And I think that it's on its way to being that. But, in making it prettier also comes with the not so exciting spillway replacements too. But it's just an expensive but necessary item.
Interesting. It's fascinating to look at the aerials all the way back to 1962. And Justin, you did a good job the other day of just sort of pointing out. It's just for the curiosity of those of us who are here and looking, the changes that occurred over time. Kind of highlight those real quickly, if you would.
Yeah, so 1962, farmland, 1973, grass was changed, the lake was put in.
Wasn't this called Heisinga's Hole back then? If I got the right spot, Gary?
It was always Rushmore Lake from when I was a kid, but it might have been at one time. Ernie Miedema platted that. Ernie Miedema put the houses around that.
I remember going to Heisinga's Hole.
Hey, that's possible.
Never heard of that before.
So between 1973 and 1984, the pond that we have in our park was dug, and then the spillway was built basically on our property in 1984. Between 1973 and 1984, and that allowed basically storm surge upstream to not flood out the neighbors on Rushmore Lake. Came over to our pond, and that's really where the source of water comes for our pond. It's where the spillover from the creek.
Right.
It's not spring fed, it's overflow. And as our pond fills up, we have a tube on the backside of our lake that comes back into the creek. My original plan was to put 2 pipes in and put concrete over it and save $100,000.
Point out, I found fascinating, I always wondered, why does the river sort of run outside of the lake there and around the edge of it? It seems strange when you see it back there.
Talk about why they rerouted the creek, which we can never do today.
Right. The creek was done by the DEQ. They made Ernie Miedema put that creek, and I talked to John Bauma, who worked for Ernie Miedema at the time. I asked him about that a couple months ago. We discussed this with Justin. And he goes, yeah, they made him put that creek, and then all them people that are on Brentwood, they got bridges across that creek to use Rushmore. At one time, that creek would come in there and would raise that lake so bad it would flood out a lot of those people. So they basically built a dike to solve that. And they had carp issues there so bad. They'd get carp that would come up there so bad they couldn't get rid of them. So, yeah. Yeah, today, I mean, the DEQ would fight itself doing that.
Is Rushmore spring fed then, or what are?
So, yeah, most of it is.
Is it?
The interesting thing is they changed all the floodplain maps since they built those houses. Every one of them houses got to get flood insurance now because I talked to Craig DeVries, in fact, this week, and he lives right on the end of Brentwood, right by that spillway. And he's 3/4 of an inch into the floodplain, so he's got to get flood insurance.
Really?
Wow.
Yeah, he's just telling me, as I was asking about that spillway.
3/4?
He's 3/4 of an inch into the floodplain, and
That's pricey.
he's got to get flood insurance. They changed all those rules.
Well, any other thoughts about our spillway?
No, I think it's definitely needed as being a former fireman with the trucks that have changed in length, and our trailer is bigger for the dive team and stuff, and we've actually read a couple stands going down through that a couple times. And with the length of the trucks and axles being bigger, with that being so short the way it is, it's almost impossible to get the new one down through there. And the trailer would make it, but it's going to do some damage if it does. So to spread it out a little bit, I think is a good thing. That should help it up tremendously. And it'll also maybe keep the speed down of far as cars that maybe wanting to whip down there. It still has a little dip to it, so we'll keep a vehicle slowed down too. So
Good perspective,
that's
yeah.
a good thing.
And unfortunately, we've had some emergencies. with
Yes,
that.
we have, yes.
Okay, all right. Hearing nothing further, all in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? And the motion carries. Item 13, cemetery fee increases did come out of Services Committee. And I'd like to address that first. First of all, does anyone wish to make a motion to put it on the floor?
So move.
Support.
All right, now it's on the floor before you. Discussion, thoughts?
Our cemeteries cost a lot of money to maintain, the grass, the weeds, the trimming, everything. And I know Justin looked at, and probably you looked at, different rates for different municipalities. And we found that we do really need to increase our rates just because we're not, I mean, it's not a moneymaker where it's a money loss to the township. So we need to kind of be more in line. And yes, I can see points saying for residents to keep rates down and to raise for non-residents, but I think we're doing a little bit of both.
Others?
As somebody who has to purchase a lot of property for land development purposes, one of the rules of thumb is, you need to be essentially charging the replacement rate of your land. So once this land is gone, and if we need to buy more land, property right now, even last year, $25,000 an acre. Now I'm making offers on property at $45,000 an acre that aren't getting accepted. So the cost for property is through the roof. We have to be treating this as a very finite resource. And this is one of the ways, I think, to do that. The increase itself obviously is significant, but I do think it's in line with what the end product is.
I know Rod could speak to this better than any of us here, but I want to say with the new area that we're developing there in the cemetery, as well as what we eventually will use of our own property across the street, I think we bought close to 30 years, 20 to 30 years, 30 years perhaps, yeah, which is good foresight, and hopefully we won't have to acquire more property for a long, long time. I think too, I know Sean made a mention during public comment, I would think that we don't have an intention of raising this again anytime soon. I feel like it's a little bit of a catch-up and a little bit of, okay, let's put ourselves out there even maybe a little beyond some, like be they Jamestown or otherwise. And yet I don't see us turning around and doing it again, say in 2 years. So I feel like we played good catch-up, and it's necessary. So Anyone bought their plots there? Just out of curiosity? Okay, I've got, yeah, a couple there. So,
I'm waiting for the new section to see what trees are left.
you want a really nice oak or something?
I will tell you this, my grandfather bought 8 lots in Georgetown Township for $1 during the Depression.
Wow,
And the dollar was for the paperwork.
wow.
And he was so poor, the clerk gave him $1 back when he was done.
That's a great story.
Yeah.
And did they end up using those or reselling them for gain?
My grandfather was so poor that they lost a baby and they couldn't afford to bury it, so they buried it behind the garage. And then they lost another baby, so he bought the 8 lots. And he put the 2 babies on 1 lot. He saved 2 lots for my grandma and himself. And then my aunt and uncle never had children. They got 2 lots. And then he gave my dad 3 lots. And my dad says, what would I need 3 lots for? And my grandpa said, well, maybe you'll lose a child someday. My brother died at 30. And he's got the other lot. So, crazy story.
A lot of stories out there.
Yeah.
You walk, yeah, yeah. Don't do as I did if you haven't bought yours yet. I made it a date night surprise, and she didn't find that very romantic. So
I was glad that Rod put some
Mary.
trees in, so I got mine by a tree already, so I'm good. Rod already had the trees earlier planted, so I picked mine out by a tree, so I'm good.
So you're
Don't have to worry about
I
trees.
like a columbarium option, so good either way.
okay. All right. See that youth
Yeah.
full view, yeah. Any other comments about it? Hearing none. This is not a. Let me just make sure. Is this a roll call vote? I think it probably should be. I'm sorry. I'm looking at 14. My apologies. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? And it carries. Now item 14.
Okay, before 14, I'm going to ask if you want to decide to recuse me, because this does involve my piece of property I own.
Yeah. So, Robert's rules, I can't force you to, but I think I would
I
encourage
would
you.
more than happy to recuse myself if
Yeah.
that's decided by the board.
Yeah, that's your, yep. So any objection to Gary recusing himself here?
No.
No, okay. All right, so you may sit here, but no voice, no vote, okay?
No vote.
All right. I guess you could have voice if people had a genuine question, as you would ask anyone from the public, in which case, if you're asked a question, odd as it may seem, I'd ask you to go to the podium. So, but before we get to that point, is there a motion to authorize this change of zoning for this parcel?
So moved.
Support.
Okay, it's been moved and supported. You all have the staff report, application, et cetera. Either whether they be questions for Gary or whether they be comments and discussion among the board, the floor is open.
Is there any history on this plot? I understand it was a parcel that was basically given up by a church because they did not want to.
Was owned by the Lutheran Synod and not the church.
Okay.
Gary, do you wish to present something to us related to this?
The only thing is that
I'd ask you.
I can do that.
Yeah,
All right.
if you would. Yep.
Gary Bellman, 158 Hudson Drive. So I actually rezoned the parcel that's to the south of that. A few months ago, I was in and had that rezoned. After I bought that, the Missouri Synod Lutheran Church decided they wanted to sell that, and they asked me if I wanted to buy it. At the time, I did not, because I had already done 3 splits off the property. But then I started doing some thinking, and what I'm actually going to do is have it rezoned, and I'm going in for a site condo. So I'll get 3 more lots off from this parcel through the site condo, and I'll end up with 6 lots total. I already have 3, but then this parcel will be going in for site condo. But the way the ordinance is written, I've got to get my rezoning first and then come back. The reason it's dual zoned, it's actually one part is LDR and one part is office service, is if you see where Creekfield comes down, that parcel came off from Port Sheldon. When they ran that road in for Corwell, which is on the east side of that road, the street didn't run down the parcel split. It curved over and it didn't take in the parcel split. And so I'm only rezoning parts of that property so that the whole parcel will be LDR. So.
And surrounding that, other than what, the church property there?
Yep, the Synod has given that house that's on Port Sheldon to the church. And then the church property goes from Port Sheldon all the way to Harrison, right on through. So.
And the zoning to the east there, where those houses are, is that LDR or is that MDR?
At one time, this parcel came like this. And this was all one piece. They ran this street in here, so you get Corwell back here. This street came around for the condos there, Avenue condos. So this part here is already zoned LDR. This part here was zoned office service for these offices, and then ran the road. They didn't have the zoning follow the street. They just follow the parcel. So now this parcel's here. I own this parcel, this parcel, this parcel. The church parcel goes all the way through to Harrison, and this parcel, this is the house that the Synod owned, and they decided to give that to the church. So, I don't know what I'm gonna do with this piece. That ended up being quitclaim deed to the church too, because I really don't need that for the 3 parcels for a site condo. So, this is the process.
Anyone else have questions for Gary before we allow him to sit back down? Okay, hearing none. How about among the board? Comments, thoughts about this proposal?
Seems like a reasonable request and logical.
Yeah.
This is your-
It's just
this is
clean,
your
I mean,
field,
it's just, yeah, it's just cleaning it up. I mean, by the letter of the law, that future land use map still wants to follow an old property line that doesn't exist. It's cleaning it up, and for that reason, it meets all of the standards for a rezone.
Kevin, anything?
No, he answered my questions.
All right, very good. I'll say for the benefit of the public as well as the board, Gary's never talked to me about this. I doubt he has any of you. I didn't realize he'd even bought it or was considering this request till it came out on the agenda. So appreciate your arm's length approach to this. So have a seat if you like.
On this?
Yeah, yep. Are we ready to cast a vote? Yep. Okay.
Trustee Grassman?
Yes.
Supervisor Wieringa?
Yes.
Trustee Kelly?
Yes.
Treasurer DeWitt?
Yes.
Clerk is a yes. Trustee Schwalm?
Yes.
All in favor.
Okay, thank you. Item number 15, Parks Department truck purchase. There a motion to approve the purchase of a 2025 GMC Sierra for the Parks Department.
Support.
Supported. Discussion. I know we have Rod here this evening, and perhaps it'd be good just to start, Rod, if you don't mind. I know we've done our homework, and I think we know most of what we want to know, but it'd be good to have you address the need and then perhaps field questions if there are any.
Sure. So I got a 2015 Ford F-250 that is a diesel truck, and that was supposed to last a lot longer than what it did. Ford had a lot of problems with the CP4 unit, which is the high pressure fuel injection on their trucks, and this one went bad, and that is an $11,000 fix. It's really tough to put $11,000 in an older pickup. We have 95,000 miles on it, which is low mileage for the year. But the box is getting really rusty. I covered up a lot of the rust in the past. So yeah, we're getting into our busy season. I need trucks for the guys. This is undrivable at this point. I mean, it's drivable, but if we keep driving it, we're going to wreck the engine the rest of the way. Then it won't be worth anything. Right now, we could probably sell it on public auction for a decent amount.
You want to give a range? I don't want to lock you into a number. Yeah.
It's going to be really hard, with that, but probably anywhere from $10 to $15 to $18,000 it probably could go for yet. Because it looks nice. But we'd have to sell it knowing that it has issues. We've seen vehicles go for a high price on those public auctions before.
Additional questions for Rod? Stay tuned. If something comes up, Rod, we appreciate it. I don't know. Gene, what do you think?
I did go and talk to Rod a little bit about it. I didn't realize it was a diesel to get go, because my thought was replacing engines, but I did look into replacing that, and you're looking at $15,000 to $20,000 even just to do an engine replace. But then you still got a 10-year-old truck with 8 or 9 years worth of snow plowing on the transmission and rusty body and everything else. So I think this is probably, we don't like to spend the money, but I think this is probably a good move.
Appreciate that report. Anyone else? Kevin, any thoughts?
No.
No? We've had I might call it a spate of replacements here of late, maybe the third truck now, township-wide, not just for parks, right? Do you see, and do you know enough about the fleet right now to say, boy, and I see one or two others coming down the pike, or?
There is, in the water sewer department.
Yeah.
There's a few more. I have a couple of older trucks yet. I mean, old, I'm talking, I have a 14. I have let's see, that's a 20, which that isn't so old, but they're relatively low mileage yet, and I keep my trucks in top-notch shape as best as I can. But the 14 is getting there. So I think the township does need to look at a program of replacing the trucks sooner than what we have in the last 5 to 8 years here. 10 years is just too long on a truck that is used like we use them here in the township. 95,000 miles in a 6-mile square is a lot of wear and tear. Brakes, transmissions, steering components, and then you put plowing on top of it, which is hard on everything. We cannot have downtime. I don't have that type of personnel to cover if we get a big snow and I got a truck that goes down. I'm in a world of hurt. I just don't have any backup. So we need to have vehicles that I can rely on. And the township's always been very good with that. In the past, helped me out, try to maintain them as best we can. But these type of things happen. And especially with this truck, just in the last year, just all of a sudden we're starting to nickel dime things. It's not nickel and dime. It's hundreds and thousands that are going into it. And it's got to stop somewhere. This kind of stops it.
I don't know if this is for you or more for Justin, but we did a multi-bid process this time. Sometimes we have a government program that we purchase under. Comparable in this instance, if either of you knows. I know this one happens to be on the lot. It's non-tariffed, whatever. I don't know if that's going to affect, but is this multi-bid process getting us as close as we can be to our best price?
It's very difficult to find vehicles right now that are on the lot. We did try to find a black one that Benton Baker tried to get here, and they tried to do a swap, a red truck for a black one. The other dealership won't let go of their trucks because what's on the lot they can sell for a price. The new ones come in that has a higher sticker, they sell for that price. So it's kind of like turf wars right now.
Interesting. Okay. Thank you, Rod.
Thank you, Rob.
Is the board ready to vote?
Yep.
All right. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Okay?
Opposed? and is passed. Okay, item number 16, second public comment period. Anyone tonight wishing to address the board for a second time? And by the way, matters brought up the first time could be discussed by the board during discussion, the next point, so don't think that what you said so far is lost on us. Anybody wish to speak further? Yes, Sergeant Tamiga, welcome.
Sergeant Taminga with the Sheriff's Office. I just wanted to publicly address Rob leaving this week and just express personally my gratitude for the professional relationship that he and I have had along with Justin, and just how well these last 3 years. I came to Georgetown in March of 2022, and he was within 2 months of that. Didn't know much about the relationship that the township had with the sheriff's office, and the degree and the amount of communication that he and I have had along with Justin has just been a great experience on behalf of the sheriff's office. So just express my gratitude to Rob. It may not look like it, and probably size 2 or 3, but those are going to be big shoes to fill, buddy. Thanks, Rob.
Thank you. Thank you. Good words. Anyone else? All right.
Pete Plowman, Georgetown, Precinct 13. I'm not sure if I made my point to you, because I kind of said it fast, about what John Teeple said about the land that we have over by Grand Valley. I think we could maybe look at the option of doing a, option to purchase on some of those farmlands so that we can keep those in the tax base for Georgetown, because as I've heard Gary say, Grand Valley's coming this way and they grab big pieces of property for whatever expansion they're doing. I think we got to just look at it as a defensive strategy, so that we can use that land for other things that we want to use it for. So thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Anyone else? All right, seeing none, we'll close the second public comment period. Item 17, discussion and general information among the board. Let's say we start with substance, and then we can finish if anybody wishes to make comments related to Rob. So we start with anything other than Rob.
Well, I know Justin is getting us name tags, and I noticed that John Teeples had a very nice name tag. So I did notice that.
You're all about the bling, aren't you?
Well, no, I go to these events, they spell my name wrong. They spell my name wrong every time.
Yeah.
2 S's in my last name. So I'm like, we should, when we go to these grand openings and different things, we should at least have a name tag. And he has a very nice name tag. So Justin's on it. So thank you. I don't have it yet.
It's 1 S, right? Okay, that's what I've been using. What else?
Well, I went to, last Thursday, went to the Ottawa County Treasurers Association meeting at Fillmore Complex. Met Cheryl and some of the people down there, Molly, and it was very good. I had a couple hours, had root beer floats. The detective from the Sheriff's Department came in and talked about fraud, which is a lot closer to us than we really think it is. I know Ottawa County got burned by a few thousand. I guess Hudsonville got burned with a few thousand, and they're working hard to do it. And it was a very interesting hour presentation. And Cheryl did get up and talked about some other things that I think the board will be privy to down this road here in a few weeks. But it was very informative. I'm glad I went.
You went too. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
I would like to bring up the topic of the master plan. I just think that we've reached a point where we should probably be discussing this in a little bit more of an open format. I was a little disappointed to see that the responsibility of initiating a master plan amendment lies with the Planning Commission, and that is state statute. That is the Planning and Zoning Enabling Acts. And the Planning Commission did not authorize the master plan update initiation until March 19. And yet on March 17, the Finance Committee was already discussing who they wanted to hire to do the master plan update.
That's not true, but I'll let you finish. Yeah.
Well, I can't tell if that's true because, again, there's no minutes of what discussion actually took place at the Finance Committee. But I spent a lot of time reading through the Planning Commission minutes. And I just will say that, you know, the Planning Commission is near and dear to my heart. I spent a lot of time on the Planning Commission. You know, I've dedicated my career to being a land planner. I worked for the township for 3 years as their zoning administrator. Most recently, only a couple years ago, I also worked as the interim zoning administrator for this township, and I've spent a lot of time on this planning commission and being a part of, you know, rezonings and other items related to zoning ordinances and master plans throughout Kent, Ottawa, and Allegan County. So it's something that I'm just incredibly passionate about, and so, you know, to see, like, to read through the minutes and to see that the Finance Committee, and this is what I can kind of gather, right, from the minutes. The Finance Committee on March 17th was already discussing hiring a contractor for the master plan. This wasn't even initiated by the Planning Commission until March 19th. And then you kind of get to the April 2nd meeting, and you see on April 2, you know, Ryan does an incredible job with these minutes. The minutes are very detailed, right? But you see in page 2, which is page 5 of these minutes, that the zoning administrator confirmed that this was also the first time he was being made aware of this process taking place. And it just strikes me as odd that our zoning administrator doesn't even know that 3 firms have already been essentially earmarked and chosen for the master plan update. You know, I just quickly jotted down a list on a little sticky note of all of the very capable firms of doing master plan updates that have done them throughout this community. And it just feels like we really missed a step here, that we probably should have first and foremost decided what we wanted to see in a master plan update and kind of discussed what that RFP even looked like. Because now we've already apparently contacted 3 firms. But as a board member who's very passionate about our master plan update, I have no idea what was requested of those 3 people to even respond to, let alone I don't necessarily agree with the 3 firms that were even solicited. So it just feels like they're in an age where we just had a goal-setting session and talked about the importance of transparency and how we were going to make these committee minutes, you know, more accessible and with more detail. It just feels, it feels like a disservice to our community that this is happening in a way that appears to be behind closed doors. And the reason that I'm saying that is because I feel that way, and I'm a board member. I'm a board member who's very passionate about this process, has made clear to the Planning Commission that I'm passionate about this process, and I've had multiple meetings with you to make you aware of how passionate I am about this process. And so when I have to find out through reading minutes that 3 firms have already been selected and an RFP essentially already decided on without the Planning Commission having any say in it, without the board having any say in it, you know, and to see the comments here by our own planning commissioners basically saying, we'd like to see this. We'd like to be a part of this process. We'd like to be a part of this process. I can't tell you how many comments I highlighted in here basically saying, we'd like to be a part of this process. And then to find out that they had to make a formal request to even see the proposals, it just feels like it sends a message to our planning commissioners that we either don't trust them or we don't value their opinion enough for them to be a part of this process. And it also feels that way as a board member. It's just like, obviously this is outside of being a clerk, this is my literal profession, and somehow I just feel like I'm being boxed out, and it's not a good feeling. And I just want to state for the record, I think we made a huge misstep in this process, and I think the entire process should start fresh and originate at a full planning commission or a full board and not just at finance.
Okay. Anyone wish to either address that or any other subject?
Kelly, did you talk to Rob and Justin and Jim before this?
No.
And if you were this passionate, wouldn't you have contacted them and said, yeah, I've got a problem. Can we just sit down and talk or maybe have lunch? And because this is important to me.
Jim knew that.
I'm sure like to be able to open this up because this is pretty big what you're doing, and you're just dropping it on us.
Well,
I really don't even know what you're talking about.
unfortunately, I don't believe in having these conversations via email. I want this conversation to happen in this forum. I think everybody deserves
Just a second.
a part of this
You
conversation.
just insinuated an Open Meetings Act violation, and I can't let that stand.
I'm not,
There's
I'm
been
just,
nothing of
no,
the kind.
no, and
Thank you. Then don't suggest that by email, we are doing something behind the backs of the public.
I'm
which we are
not, but please also don't suggest that I should be having a private conversation with you about this. I made a very specific choice to not have a private conversation because we've already had private conversations and you knew how important this was to me. And so then to not be included feels like a purposeful slight.
Okay, well then I'm forced to address what I know in my involvement, which is I met with Kelly knowing that she had this background and knowing that she'd be passionate about this. I met with Josiah at least a couple of times knowing that he's the head of the Planning Commission. I met with Kevin, who was our zoning administrator when we were initiating this discussion at the beginning of the year, and he was still in that position. I probably met with him 3 or 4 times. I met with, at that time, with Manette, our former zoning administrator. So, and I even contacted historically to look back, how have we done this in the past? Because we haven't hired a planner since, I think, 2015. I think, wait, strike that, 2010. So each of the last 2 times we have done our master plan review, which was required of us every 5 years without the aid of someone in the way of a professional planner. And Kelly and Josiah and Kevin had all expressed the interest in having a planner. And I agreed with that. You know, it was part of, I guess, sort of those initial discussions of making sure that we're of similar mind in that respect. And so at that point, it seemed to be the consensus among the zoning department, talking to you, talking to Josiah, you know, probably would be good this time around. A lot has happened. It's sort of in the realm of the theme of a lot of what we're doing now, which is we were, you know, 30,000, now we're going to push 60,000. We really ought to do things in the way of updating where we are, given what we've grown to. And so from there, the recognition was we can't hire a planner without finance committee approval. That is, the board has to approve the expenditure of funds, and it's not gotten to that point, but at least to initiate that process, all we did at that meeting in March was to empower manager and assistant manager to seek requests for proposals. We didn't say who, we didn't say where, with whom. No spin was put on it. It was just, you know what, we need to initiate this process because I think we need a professional planner this time around, and it's not going to be cheap. And so that's what they have done, and we haven't gotten to the point of coming back to that committee with anything in the way of either someone chosen or what have you. In fact, there are interviews, as you're probably aware, but this week. Yeah, okay.
I just found this out today, and
Okay.
that's the part that's frustrating.
And I don't, again, from my past experience, from talking to Manette with her past experience and Dan Carlton, his past experience, what have we done in the past? How have we retained someone? It's never been done differently than the way we're doing it presently. And in fact, it's even a little bit more formal in the sense that it initiated in finance. They didn't come and somehow say, hey, here's somebody we'd want you to use. But we initiated the process to say we want a planner. And so I was doing my best to follow what had been historically the case. I agree with you that the chief responsibility for the review of the master plan lies with the Planning Commission. We're a part of that process. And of course, we had that joint meeting next month, which has been traditional in the past as well. And we felt the need to get someone lined up before that initial meeting so that they could at least be a part of that meeting, listen, ask questions, be prepared to, I guess, pick up the ball from there. And so the consideration being made among the managers and those they talk to, people who submitted proposals are going to be talked to and interviewed, including the zoning administrator, head of planning commission, myself, Manette, Rob is yet this week, and Justin. So again, from my past experience, and I'm not diminishing what you're saying, I truly don't mean that, Kelly. I believed we were following proper protocol as to how we've done it in the past. And I actually felt like I was advocating on the inside here not to make short shrift of this, but in fact to get something more formal and something in the way of an outside planner. Let's not see another cycle pass by with just tweaks, but let's really evaluate this. And so I believed from the interviews I'd had with the several of you and Kevin and the rest that the direction I was moving was consistent with what you guys were hoping and wanting. And so difference of opinion, I guess, about how it should go. I tried to follow what I understood to be protocol. Maybe it's not as clear, but nobody's been hired as yet. And of course, the money to hire them would have to be approved by finance, but then sent by recommendation here to be voted on by the entire board.
I would just like at least, and I'll just follow up by saying, I might have very strong opinions on this, but I will, remind everybody, and I think what you said at the very first meeting was so important. If we all thought the same, there would be no reason for 6 of us to be here. Mm-hmm. I have strong opinions on this, but I also want to just state that I think every single person here is here for the betterment of our community. I don't think that what you did was ill-intentioned in any way. I'm just pointing out that I still think we missed the mark a bit, because what I'd at least like to see now after the fact, I'm very curious, and I would love to get emailed to me what was actually asked to prepare the RFP. So what documentation did we send to these companies to say, please respond to X? I'm curious what we asked them to respond to and prepare a proposal for. And then I'd also like to see the proposals and just invite everybody to the table. Even if we're not involved in the actual interviews, I don't want to miss an opportunity for everybody to at least feel empowered and to be a part of this process, because one of the things that we talked about was, you could poll a random person and say, how often do you go to a park in this community? And depending on their age or if they have kids, they might be like, never. How often do you rent a book from the library in this community? Maybe never. But how often do all of us drive down the streets and drive through a neighborhood every single day? So master planning is like one of the things that truly impacts all of us in not very exciting ways, sort of like utilities do. But it is so important, and I do think that all of us should at least be somewhat involved in this process.
I think Jim handled this professionally and in detail, and he reached out to everyone. It was done incredibly well. But the way you presented this, it's like you're accusing him of doing something unethical, and I think you should have discussed it with him before you dropped this on him, right before a meeting. You may say, well, I should have. This is big, and you're making an accusation, and you're 100% wrong, and you should have talked to Jim before you did this.
I would appreciate that as we go through this process, and I fully expect that everyone will have a voice, everyone both on the Planning Commission and on this board. And I did mean what I said at the first meeting in that respect, which is we're going to have differences of opinion. I think, if I had to guess, just from life experience, we'll probably have younger people have a different view than older people. I think that might be, if it falls along the line. And I think I'm in the older people camp now. I turned 60 this year. Everybody's going to have, I trust, a say. And in fact, I guess what I felt I was doing is everyone's going to have more of a say than they've had now for about 15 years, in a sense. The last 2 cycles were not inappropriately so, but I think we're not change cycles, if you will. But I think we're at a cycle right now that's going to be important. And I read those minutes too. There's a lot of people with a lot of opinions, strong opinions about one way or another. It's going to be very interesting in that respect. And I believe everyone will be heard. And I don't think anyone is going to be, as a professional planner, coming in and dictating to us, but listening to us and helping guide us. And I trust, I don't know them as well as you do in terms of the planning field, but I trust that the person hired will be very competent and that they will be very good at eliciting everyone's perspective, including the public. I mean, including the general public, not just the boards, but getting out there and into the community and getting feedback. So
I'd like to speak to this since I actually am on the Planning Commission.
Yeah.
So if you go back a couple, 3 meetings when this got brought up about hiring a planner, nobody even knew who to get for a planner because we haven't done it for so long. So they asked anybody know. I said, well, I'll reach out to a couple friends of mine on the planning commission or on the board, and they gave me a couple of names. And even then, there's not a lot of planners out there, to be honest, in this area. So I came back to the board, and I had a meeting with Justin, and I said, hey, we're looking at getting a planner. He says, well, we've actually been looking at a couple of them too. It's okay, fine. So I came back to the board, and that's why the discussion came. It's like, well, how come the board's dealing with this and not us? Well, you look in the minutes, I'm pretty sure I'm quoted saying the power's in the purse because the planning commission has no money. I mean, we can't do anything without the board approval. I mean, I guess that's why I'm board representative there, right? So everybody understands where the power's in the purse. So, and I said, you know, if that information is available, we'll get it to you. And it was. That was those three firms that had put proposals together have been sent out, I believe, to the planning commission. So, having said that, though, 3 meetings ago, this was actually just brought up at the planning commission meeting of whether or not what we're going to do about planning. And there was discussion about do we want a full-blown planner, or do we want somebody to overlook what we've done in the past to see if we've done it correctly? And that's a discussion that'll have to come up because that really wasn't decided that I can remember. That was a discussion between those on the planning commission going, do we get somebody that comes in and just takes over, or do we have them look over what we've done in the past and tweak it to where we think it ought to go in the future? So I don't think that decision's been made yet. So
Which is why I'm curious what the RFP asked for, because you would think that the RFP would have had to say, we want somebody to be a full-blown planner, or we want somebody to be a limited consultant. And so that's why I'm curious to see what the request was for.
yeah,
And for what that's worth, there wasn't a request for a limited involvement. And I expect you could talk to Rob or Justin either tonight or tomorrow and see what it was that was sent out.
Josiah's on that now, so he's overseeing part of that. So, I mean, I don't think there's anything nefarious. It was actually just a discussion. We're going to have this meeting, and we're going to do the master plan. And I think it might have been Janine who said, you know, maybe we should look at getting a professional planner.
I'll own my part of this in the sense that Josiah and I perhaps came away from our discussions too on the same page in that respect in terms of getting some outside help this time, but he probably along the lines of what Kelly's saying in that, you know, they see their role as, and their role is to kind of oversee this process.
Right.
Yeah, the power of the purse, so there's kind of both sides.
It is.
And Josiah and I sound like we're doing similar things in our separate boards,
Right.
with the same end goal, but not knowing each other. So to that degree, my communication with him and within the office, you know, with Ryan and elsewise could have been better.
There's a lot of pieces that got to go together for a plan anyways. More involved than, you know, utilities and whatever.
Yeah, yeah. All right. More discussion to follow, whether after the meeting or in the coming days here. A couple of thoughts I had. It was mentioned about the E-Unit program. We're very aware of that and very much looking at options. So it is a big deal. I agree. It is a big deal, and it's not that far off in the future. So we'll be discussing that more soon. We'll be discussing water, sewer, and what's happening with that new pipe that John referred to, and all of the communities in the county are going to get hit with increases, and it's unavoidable. We're going to talk about that, I'm sure, here very soon. Again, for what it's worth, mention made by Pete tonight from the podium there about buying up land. I am very open to that potential as well, but I will say from past experience, it's hard to do. It is definitely a lightning rod issue if whether we should pick up property or not. We've done that at times. We did it down in the corner when we created the gateways. We got rid of the tattoo parlor, and we became a catalyst there. We became a catalyst in getting rid of Kmart. and over where the Veterans Memorial is. And so those can be, and even those warehouses by the highway. I mean, those could be sometimes controversial, sometimes celebrated, sometimes both. But I, for one, recognize that I don't want to see the college gobble up land. And I know Kelly and Gary, being their professions and backgrounds, probably don't want the college to have it, don't necessarily want us to have it. So I guess we'll see over time. But I think if it's the sort of thing that you hear in the community, you have a connection, you know a particular farmer or someone that is someone we ought to have a discussion with, this board could discuss that possibility. My last thing is, how do you like your new puppy?
Let's see, I left my house at 4 a.m. on Thursday morning and got home at 3 a.m. on Saturday morning. Drove to Nashville and bought a puppy, and he did not sleep on Saturday night or Sunday night.
Did you sleep?
No.
You were an empty nester, not anymore. Yeah.
All
right.
But yeah, he's a great dog, though. I can't wait till he figures life out a little bit. So.
Any other items before anybody wishes to make further comments directed toward Rob? All right, hearing none. I know several of you did last time. Don't feel that you need to repeat, but you're also welcome to do so. So anybody, as we close out this meeting and Rob's last meeting with us, any comments that you'd like to make?
I'd like to jump in because I wasn't here. I get to watch from Florida the next day. Had I been here, I would have sided with Gary and not accepted your resignation. So I just want to thank you for your service and your dedication to the township, the well-being of the people here. It's inspiring, and hopefully that's a bar set for whoever does fill your little shoes. In my 3 months or 4 months, I guess, I've had a number of employees tell me how you made the township a better place to work. And I think that's fantastic just to hear that from people. You don't always get appreciation. There's a lot of us that have thankless jobs. You're one of them. I do appreciate you, though, and I value your friendship. So thank you.
Thank you, Kevin. And by the way, I wear size 10.
Smaller than average.
Yes.
Well, I said I couldn't say anything last time, but I'll say something this time. Rob, you've done a tremendous job, tremendous job. When we had that search firm who brought, I think, 10 finalists, I want to say it was, and then 5 of whom I think we interviewed. I didn't know you were on that list, and many of you found out, at that time, I knew Rob. We graduated from high school together. He thought he was too cool for me, so we didn't really do a whole lot together, but no, Rob was a good guy in high school. He was a great guy, and to see him all of a sudden in professional capacity years later, you're thinking, Rob the wrestler, Rob the goof off and good student, both kind of combined, who went on and got various degrees and really acquitted himself well, and then went on and led at various levels all the way up to being a superintendent of schools, and now in this position. Rob, you've done really well for yourself, and we are grateful that we had you for 3 years. It was an important season of time. It's never easy to follow someone who's been here for 30-plus years, right? That's never fun. You moved in and you established yourself and who you were. Not trying to be somebody else or be the last guy, but being who you were, and we needed those skills and talents. And we would have loved to have had it longer, but we're grateful for the time we had, and appreciate you, buddy, a lot, and going to miss you. So.
And I would just like to say you're a good egg, and I will give this to you after. There's some little sayings in here and words of wisdom that you can look through later.
Nice.
Because you're a good egg. Thank you for your service, too.
Thank you.
Well, Rob has done an incredible job for us, and I mentioned before, just our staff admires him. At the senior center, they call him Super Rob, for superintendent, but Super Rob, and they mean it. And particularly with healthcare, we were lacking, and you helped us tremendously to have, I think, a very, very good program for our people. And very well organized, And with the DPW building going up, which looks beautiful, and making all those things happen, this is a terrific loss for us. But we're thrilled to be able to pull you out of retirement for 3 years, and we know whatever you want to do, you're going to be very successful. And as John had mentioned, getting you on the Citizens Committee, I hope you will stay with those type of activities because we need that type of leadership in our community. And you provide that. So we admire you. I do. I think all of us do.
Yep.
Terrific loss. You married well also. Also one of my students along with Jim. So I'm glad we were able to shape you up.
All right, and with that, go ahead.
Yeah, I would just like to say thank you to the board. It's been an honor to serve our residents for 3 years and work for the board and work with our outstanding staff. It's tremendous. So thank you. I appreciate it. And I leave with wonderful memories. So thank you.
Thank you.
I'm buying lunch next time.
All right.
Get the walleye. It's well worth it.
Is there a motion to adjourn?
So move.
Support.
All right, we are adjourned.